Kia ora and welcome to our midweek check-in with Aotearoa Rugby League matters, starting with the first game of the round in the NRL. West Tigers are hosting the Warriors of New Zealand, and we've got a much-needed dose of speed returning to this Warriors team with the Lofiana Khan-Pereira selected on the wing. So that's going to be useful. I do think Shans Nickel-Clockstar deserves his opportunity to stay on the wing. I think he's been pretty good. So with Olofiana Khan-Pereira returning and adding much needed speed to this Warriors team, and specifically the backline, that means that Luke Laulilii won't make his debut against his former team. But Luke Laulilii is named on the wing in New South Wales Cup, where he will be playing against his brother Kit Laulilii. So it's a funky little thing there where Laulilii's move to the Warriors is timely for the games, not just NRL, but New South Wales Cup and under-21s against Tigers and their affiliated teams. So welcome to Mount Smart, Luke Laulilii, but you won't be playing at Mount Smart just yet. You did play for the Tigers when they defeated the Warriors at Mount Smart Stadium earlier in the season. Of course, that was one of the icky Luke Metcalf games, back-to-back losses against the Tigers and the Sharks. It was also a very strange Adam Pompey game. He got sin-binned in that game for tackling one of the Tigers players after they kicked it in the in-goal area, and he slowed down the return to the 7-tackle set and so on and so forth. So it was one of a few now very strange Adam Pompey games, culminating in what we saw against the Dolphins a couple of weeks ago. And Adam Pompey is still holding on to his centre position, so I do think it's an interesting moment. I'm going to include Ali Leitaua as well. I think it's a very interesting moment for those two players as centres at the Warriors. I think Leitaua has more potential. I think he's got more long-term stability at the Warriors. But as far as trying to roll through the rest of the season with the best centre pairing possible, Adam Pompey and Ali Leitaua need to respond against the Tigers. They'll be matched up against Stafford Toa from Auckland and Hiamasi Makasini. So that's a kind of tricky centre matchup for those two. Although it's not like Adam Pompey and Leitaua, like Leitaua specifically coming up against Herbie Farnworth. Like these two aren't quite at that level, but they are lively centres. Obviously, Makasini's a young phenom. Stafford Toa is holding down positions, centre and wing for the Tigers, despite battling injury, despite a few form lapses, and he's off to the Seagulls next season, but he's still getting selected at centre under Benji Marshall. Tigers fans might think they have the better centre pairing. Warriors fans may also think that the Tigers have the better centre pairing based on the opinions about Ali Leitaua and Adam Pompey. Regardless, it's going to be an interesting matchup. I think those two are really fighting for their short-term futures as starting centres for the Warriors, hunting finals footy. And based on what we've seen most recently against the Dolphins, they need to do something special or just be very, very solid at the very least. Very, very, very. Also in the forward pack, we got James Fisher-Harris returning with Leka Halasima. That's obviously going to be very beneficial for this Warriors team, specifically Fisher-Harris. And with Halasima at edge forward, now we've got the two aerial threats on both edges with Leka Halasima and Jacob Laban. We saw Jacob Laban shine against the Dolphins, I think it was, and he is, throughout the junior ranks, Jacob Laban has those kicking tries to the same degree as Leka Halasima. If you go deeper, Laban's also got a few very impressive tackle-busting, line-breaking tries like we've seen from Leka Halasima, but not to the extent. Regardless, the Warriors halves, Te Maire Martin, Harris Tavita, they can put up the same kick to the right and the left with Halasima and Laban in those positions. So I do think that is an asset to watch out for with the Warriors coming up against this Tigers team, because now we do have Halasima joining Laban as juniors who have come through the Warriors system, now starting together at edge forward. I'm expecting Laban to play 80 minutes, but he could get a break because he's had a busy month or so with Marata Niukore on the bench. Also on the bench, you do have Barnett, you do have Capewell. We'll see what they do after Australian duty. Luke Metcalf's on the bench as well, but we won't be seeing him probably. And a couple of little spotlights here on the young forwards. Tanner-Smith is averaging 39 minutes per game this season, which is very impressive for a player of his, only in his second year or so of NRL footy, starting prop, churning through pretty big minutes. Not quite as many minutes as Eddie Iramia Toiava, though. Of course, Tanner-Smith has played a few more games this season, a lot more games, and he's just playing through the middle, where Eddie Iramia Toiava's 40 minutes per game, so there's only 1 minute difference, but his 40 minutes per game this season, that does have his decent performance at centre. I think that was against the Dolphins, 58 minutes in that game. Either way, these are two young forwards who are churning out pretty big minutes relative to their experience. And then we've got Laban and Halasima, who are both capable of playing 80 minutes at edge forward as well. Whereas Vaimonga, he's more... I don't know his exact average, I didn't look that up, but he is playing a slightly different role to the workers of Eddie Iramia Toiava and Tanner-Smith. This will be a tricky game for the Warriors over in Sydney, but we've seen the Warriors defeat the Tigers in Sydney. We also saw the Tigers defeat the Warriors at Mount Smart, so I'm not sure home advantage is much of a thing here in this game, and we'll wait and see what happens between the Tigers and the Warriors in the NRL. In NRLW, we have Warriors versus Raiders. That is on Sunday afternoon. First game for Stacey Walker. She is named on the wing. That's very exciting. Very eager to see Walker playing for this Warriors team. As I said in the big podcast yesterday, not just for the footy things. She's fast, she's agile, she's pure class on a rugby union and rugby league field, but she's a vibrant personality, and we don't have Mele Hofunga, but we do have a lot of these recognizable Kiwi athletes who have built up a lot of mana in the Kiwi sports fandom. Walker, Gail Broughton, even someone like Patricia Maliepo and Api Nichols. They are powerhouses of women's sport in New Zealand right now, and Stacey Walker's only adding to that. There is a lot of players injured at the moment for the Warriors women, though. Maybe more so than the men at the moment, because the players I view as top 17 or so who are out injured at the moment: Peyton Taki-Moana, Mele Hofunga, Leishon Albert-Jones, Kaya Atai, Matakino Gray, and Maya Hill-Moana, who is suspended. She's not injured. But that's a decent chunk of your top tier out of action for this game against the Raiders. And as we've seen with the men's team, both Warriors teams can field competitive squads despite losing a lot of players to injuries, suspensions, and whatnot. And that's the story here for the Warriors woman. Hill-Moana drops out. Metanoia Fetalainga, who I think she was formerly Fotu Moala, she slots into starting prop, no worries there. And we've also got Ivana Lauitiiti on the bench. So you lose, you're down Hill-Moana, Albert Jones, and Matakino Gray, who I view as middle forwards. Kaya Atai is an edge forward. You lose Atai, no worries. We've got Pukatapu, we've got Shakira Baker, two very good edge forwards. But those middle forwards who are out of action at the moment, well, we've got Ashley Matapo, we've got Ivana Lauitiiti. They are very exciting middle forwards. And I kind of reckon Ivana Lauitiiti is not just one of the best young players in the NRLW. She should be viewed in that regard. I think she's one of the best young players at the Warriors. So I think she's just as good, if not better, than Leka Halasima, for example. If there's hype about Bishop Neal, what are we talking? Like, Ivana Lauitiiti is better than Bishop Neal right now. She's playing NRLW. She's already played for the Kiwis. Let alone any awesome young player in the Warriors system that you want to throw at me. I reckon Ivana Lauitiiti is better than those players. That's how good Ivana Lauitiiti was last season. She averaged 5.3 tackle breaks per game in her first season of NRL footy, with 1 offload per game and 105 meters per game. Then she went on to play for the Kiwi Ferns, and regardless of how many Australian-based players want to switch eligibility to the Kiwi Ferns, no matter how many rugby union players enter NRLW and work into the Kiwi Ferns mixer, none of them are as good as Ivana Lauitiiti. She is awesome at rugby league, and while there are a bunch of players out injured, Lauitiiti returns, and I think she makes this team even better than what we saw against the Bulldogs. And as an example of how powerful the Warriors were, they had more meters per run, they had a longer average set distance, more post-contact meters per run. That all flowed in with the dummy halves. Capri Paikau, Jasmine Hurawai, they combined for 7 dummy half runs and 75 meters, which is 10.7 meters per dummy half run. If that happens against the Raiders, which comes from winning the collision, winning the physicality battle, I think the Warriors will win this game with the class of their halves as well, and their whole squad. And all of that involves a bit of Lauitiiti, because Lauitiiti is going to get the ball rolling forward. Well, she's going to roll it back and play the ball, but she's going to have momentum going forward. And then she's a crazy player to have the running after a quick play the ball, because she's a tackle buster. She can offload, and the destruction will only continue with Ivana Lauitiiti on the field. Few more Warriors bits and pieces working through the grades. New South Wales Cup, they're away to play the Western Suburbs Magpies, who are affiliated with the Tigers. We do have a first appearance for Luke Laulilii and Riley Price. Riley Price joins the Warriors from Redcliffe in Queensland Cup. You know the story by now. Son of Steve Price, played a little bit of NRL, but he hasn't been able to hold down regular NRL opportunities. And he's played, I think I've got here, like 83 games of reserve grade, 51 in Queensland Cup, 32 in New South Wales Cup, with very little NRL experience, which makes Riley Price seem like a bit of a battler. Similar, though, to Cooper Page-Wilson. They're both actually 25 years old. Cooper Page-Wilson, 195 centimeters, Riley Price, 188. Page-Wilson's bigger, taller, and weighs more, 108 kgs. Riley Price, 96 kgs. Riley Price, 56 games of Queensland Cup. Sorry, Cooper Page-Wilson's 56 games of Queensland Cup. Riley Price, 51. Two, not super duper similar, because Cooper Page-Wilson is a bigger bopper, but they are somewhat similar as far as trying to highlight recruitment themes for the Warriors here. Both are mid-season signings from Queensland Cup. Cooper Page-Wilson, I don't think he played Queensland Cup this year, but he joined the Warriors after 1 or 2 games. And Riley Price has played 10 or 11 games of Queensland Cup this year, 11 games of Queensland Cup. His Redcliffe team's been very good. 8 wins and only 2 losses, 1 draw, and he's been a starting middle forward in every single game this year, mainly prop. He started 10 games at prop, 1 game at lock, churning through big minutes, over 50 minutes in most of these games. And he's also, busting a few tackles, 2.6 tackle breaks per game. He's had 5 line breaks per game this season. As a middle forward, doesn't miss many tackles per the statty tackling stuff, which is never perfect, but he doesn't have a glaring weakness in that regard. He has had a few offloads. So there's this, he does seem like a bit of a battler, Riley Price. Hasn't really commanded NRL opportunities, and he joins the Warriors at the New South Wales Cup level. Who cares what kind of contract he's on? It doesn't matter to us, because anyone can play NRL outside or whatever contract they have. Who cares? He's joining this team at the New South Wales Cup level. Like Cooper Page-Wilson, there is an opportunity for him to play NRL if he wants to, if he's capable of doing so. Of course he wants to. If he's capable of doing so, that opportunity will come in this Warriors system. And the Warriors signed these dudes for a reason. Cooper Page-Wilson and Riley Price, they went out and sought these dudes mainly, I think, to offer a bit more experience to this New South Wales Cup team. But also there's an opportunity like these, I think Andrew McFadden, Andrew Webster, they recruit players they want, obviously, that do tick a few boxes as far as what they're looking for with NRL potential, what they're lacking with a lot of the local juniors. For whatever reason, they went out and signed Cooper Page-Wilson. Then they signed Riley Price mid-season. I want to trust the Warriors' recruitment and development and see what happens. But there is a perception that Riley Price is a super-duper battler. So we'll wait and see what happens there. One very vibey thing that I've noticed with the Warriors is there doesn't seem to be much of a connection between Jet Cleary and Luke Metcalf. You watch some of the try celebrations, they might shake hands, they don't even look at each other really. Other dudes are hugging each other. These two just, yeah, whatever, keep it moving, bruh, see you later. Now we've got another situation where the team named, there could be late changes. Like we might see Luke Hansen go to fullback. He's off to the Titans next season. So I think the best thing for the Warriors is to have Luke Hansen at fullback. Geronimo Dore goes back to the bench, because this week Jet Cleary's named on the bench with Luke Metcalf, number 7, Luke Hansen, number 6, Doyle at fullback. So there could be a late change. Which seems like the best. That's happened already this season, recent weeks. I think it's the best case scenario. But not only has Luke Metcalf shaken everything up for Jet Cleary in New South Wales Cup, because it's mainly Jet Cleary who's moving around here, which I don't really like, because Cleary's the long-term player in this regard. But if Jet Cleary can handle all this team first approach, do whatever the team needs, and get through this phase, his Mount Smart mana is going to be crazy, because we all know the talent he's got, but he doesn't seem to be kicking up a fuss with any of this, aside from the bad vibes between him and Metcalf, which also flow through some of their plays together, their connection together and stuff like that. If Cleary can get through all this, maybe play a bit of hooker, because he is the only other hooker named. Now you got Jacob Alora as small forward, but he seems to be sticking to that small forward spot. So Tafua can play 80 minutes, but if you got Cleary on the bench, you're going to use him. Unless there's a late change, Hansen to fullback, Cleary into the halves, and so on. I think Cleary can handle this and benefit from this situation. And when you combine his footy ability with how he's dealing with this relative adversity, I think it's going to make him even better as a Warriors prospect. Another thing that I'm noting in New South Wales Cup is that Tyson Hansen is staying in New South Wales Cup. A lot of other dudes have dropped out of New South Wales Cup to go back to under 21s. And I do have this other idea. Could the Jersey Flegg team named this week beat the New South Wales Cup team? I think they could. And while that sounds ridiculous, players who have played New South Wales Cup this season who are named for under 21s this week are Joseph Ratcliffe, Kalis Putoko, Harry Tawawhiwhi Aiotoi, Jack Thompson, Amosi Ravasai, Masio Tiatia, Tepatasi Laulilii, Bishop Neal, Connor Bowden, Braylon Marsh, and Hohepa Chandler. That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The under-21s team has 11 players with who have played New South Wales Cup this year. Motu Pasukala's played New South Wales Cup before as well. Maybe this year. I don't know. But there is a lot of New South Wales Cup talent in this under-21s team. And I think that team would challenge the New South Wales Cup team named this weekend. But all those dudes are dropped, like Bishop Neal and Connor Bowden. They were playing New South Wales Cup together a few weeks ago. Now they're under 21s. Ratcliffe's played recently. Putoko started the season at centre. Now he's moved back down. Like, all these players have moved down from New South Wales Cup after, different amounts of games and game time. So it's nothing negative against them. It's not saying they've been dropped or demoted. What I'm saying here is that Tyson Hansen's staying at New South Wales Cup level. He's on the bench. And I've talked a lot about Tyson Hansen over the last few weeks since he's got into that New South Wales Cup team, started the year in under-19s SG Ball. I wasn't expecting him to be a New South Wales Cup player, yet here he is, staying in this New South Wales Cup squad, at least for team this Tuesday. We'll wait and see, but this dude has played a bunch of different positions for the Warriors, and he's impressing to the extent that he's holding down a pretty steady New South Wales Cup role. Also in that under-21s team, Maui Wenitana Patalasio seems to be sticking in a small forward position, just like we've seen with Jacob Auloa. Wenitana Patalasio has played in the halves, he's played hooker for the Warriors, but now he's getting most of his selection as a small forward, number 13 jersey. But he's demanding selection even though the under-21s team has Amasio Tiatia and Braylon Marsh as the hookers. So Wenitana Patalasio is doing something right. He's not as good in the halves as Jack Thompson or Harry Inch. Probably not as good a hooker as Tiatia or Marsh, both of whom have already played New South Wales Cup. But Wenitana Patalasio is still getting selected in that small forward position, so shout out to him. And just while on the topic of these dummy half small forwards, one of the Kiwi-NRL players playing for the Tigers this weekend is Jericho Felipe Talisau, who's playing in the under-21s team at hooker. He's a Manurewa junior who was formerly with the Warriors. I think he moved to the Tigers for this year. It's easy to see why he left the Warriors, right? Because he's a hooker. But he is behind Sam Healy, Makaiata forward, Jacob Auloa, Tiatia Marsh, and Maui Wenitana Patalasio, because Felipe Talisau has played a lot of small forward for the Tigers in that under-21s team, moving from lock and hooker. Another player who has left the Warriors is Aieti Samuelu, but he left a few seasons ago. He is from De La Salle College. I think he played under-21s for the Warriors, and then he moved to the Eels. He had one season with the Eels. Now he's popped up in that Western Suburbs Magpies team. He's named on the extended bench. The Tigers also have Stafford Toa, Bunty Afoa in their team to play against the Warriors. Both are from Auckland. And the Raiders team playing against the Warriors has Leanne Tufunga and Mackenzie Wiki, two Kiwi ferns from Auckland. And there's also the Tamara sisters, Zahara Tamara, Shante Tamara. Zahara's already signaled that she wants to play for the Kiwi Ferns, which is very useful because she's a veteran half. Shante's a hooker, which could add to the Kiwi Ferns' depth in that position if she makes the same move. And there's also Grace Kukutai, another junior from Auckland. She's named on the bench for the Raiders. A few other hot pockets. Roosters this week. In the NRL, we've got a few Kiwi-NRL juniors getting more opportunities this week, at least in the team name. We'll see what happens with Origin players, but Nofahu White, Salisi Faketi, Siwa Wong, and Benaya Iwalu are all planned for the Roosters this week against the Eels. And the Roosters New South Wales Cup team, they have Kanan Mageli from De La Salle College. He's starting prop. And also Charleston Terore, who the Roosters website had him as a 17-year-old. And he's on the bench for the Roosters in New South Wales Cup. He is an Otara junior. Jackson Stewart's part of their New South Wales Cup squad for this game as well. Awesome, classy outside back from Christchurch. Centre, wing, fullback, he does it all. The Roosters under-21s team is missing most or like half of their team, but two players who are named for the under-21s, EJ Mahu-Delamere and Austin Toon Hotene, both of whom I think are Papatoetoe juniors who I think they both went to Aorere College and they've worked through that Roosters system. EJ Mahu-Delamere and Jackson Stewart, Magele, Charleston Terore, they've all won the SG Ball Championship with the Roosters. And now Atun Hotene is getting a good opportunity in that forward pack for the under-21s team. EJ Mahu-Delamere is named at fullback, which may not happen if Jackson Stewart drops down to under-21s, whatever, but he's usually played on the wing for the Roosters. So if he is playing fullback, that would be very interesting for the Roosters. Siamani Leuluai is also named at centre for the Eels against the Roosters. And that's very interesting because he's from up north, mid-northern junior, who I think he initially went to the Raiders after leaving Aotearoa. But he was kind of stagnant at the Raiders, then he moved to the Eels. He'd come all the way through that Raiders system. And then he couldn't really get many more opportunities moving up to New South Wales Cup and whatnot. He goes to the Eels last summer, and now he's playing New South Wales Cup. So that's a fantastic move for Siamani Leuluai. He is at starting centre. I think he's played one game of New South Wales Cup already. And now he's named for his second, having been in the under-21s team for most of this year, which opened up space for Dakota Kakoi, Linwood Jr. from Christchurch. He's named to play at centre. Kakoi hasn't always played centre for the Eels as far as like being selected, but it is funky that he's selected this week with Leuluai moving up to New South Wales Cup. I just want to put the spotlight on the Titans women's team as well, because they've got a few funky things happening there. We have Georgia Hale hooker, obviously, as usual, but there's also Whanua Ramoni, who is 18 years old from Wainuiomata. Full name, Ti Narohia Hiahi Whanua Afina Ramoti. She is 18 years old. She is now named at starting prop for the Titans. I don't think she played last week, but she is straight onto that starting prop position this week. She's 18 years old, but she played Farah Palmer Cup for Wellington in 2024, 2 years ago. So she's obviously crazy talented, and she's working her way through that Titans system, having come through Queensland Cup. And it's a similar story because we got Serena Masanga. She's on the bench, but she's joined by Alexandra Tunufai. Both of them went to Howard College. Both of them played netball for Howard College. So there we're seeing the netball rugby league crossover that Aotearoa sport is not ready to fully comprehend, along with the rugby union stuff. Masanga's already played NRL. She's already played for Samoa. She should be playing NRLW every single week. Bit stink to see that she's dropped out of that starting centre rotation, but maybe she'll play, edge forward or something coming off the bench. Tunufai is less known, but she's had, I think she left Auckland, had a stint with Sea Eagles. There was a bunch of players from Auckland who went over to play junior footy for the Sea Eagles. But then she moved into Queensland Cup, where she's played 15 games across 2 seasons for Brisbane Tigers. Sorry, that's the Queensland Women's competition. She's played 15 games for Brisbane Tigers. And she scored 10 tries in those 15 games. 2 games at centre already this season, which then earned her an opportunity in that Titans squad. And she's obviously impressed everyone at the Titans enough to be named in their NRLW squad this week against the Bulldogs. We know the Bulldogs have a lot of players from Aotearoa. But they're coming up against the Titans team who have Georgia Hale, but then they've also got Ramoni, Masanga and Tunawhai in their squad, who are all young ladies from Aotearoa who are making the most of their opportunities in Australia. So this is part of the Aotearoa takeover that we're seeing of Women's Rugby League, NRLW. 2 deep cuts to finish with here to reward you for watching all the way to the end. Big up everyone, appreciate your support. If you do want to support the Niche Cage even further, we got a Patreon, we got to buy me a coffee, hit those things up. But otherwise, your eyeballs and eardrums is more than enough. Mason Barber, future Perth Bear. He played like 9 or 10 games at centre to start this season. Now he's played 4 games at fullback for Mackay Cutters. 4 games, 3 tries, 3 try assists, 5 line breaks, 5.5 tackle breaks per game, most of which he was doing similar stuff at centre. Like he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 try assists at centre, but he's now got 3 try assists in 3. He's got a try assist in 3 games in a row as a fullback. Fullback's his best position. He was just doing what he was told, doing his job at centre. Then he moves to fullback, tries, try assists, tackle breaks, a few offloads. This is Mason Barber from Kaikoui and his quality shining through. One last thing. The Ipswich Jets Queensland Cup team has a dude on the bench, number 17, David Bryenton. Ellerslie Eagles Jr. from Auckland. I think he went to Sacred Heart College. He, after shining in schoolboy rugby league in Australia, one of these juniors who left Aotearoa and made the Australian schoolboy squad straight away. First year, second year, straight in there. It's happened 5 years in a row. But last year was actually the most Kiwi-NRL juniors in an Australian schoolboys squad that I've been tracking over the last few years. That then led to an opportunity with the Bulldogs. I think he mainly played under 19 SG ball for the Bulldogs, and then he left the Bulldogs, as there's quite a few players who leave the Bulldogs over the years. Obviously, there's been a few dramas about that stuff as well, but there's been other players who have just vanished from the Bulldogs system. Off the top of my head, Roy Tatupo from Auckland, celebrated from Mount Albert Grammar, like Australian media hyped up his signing, vanished. There's another dude, Shea Fa'aonga, Kelston Boys High School. Had a bit of time with the Bulldogs, vanishes from rugby league. Like, this is not just happening at the NRL level, but it's happening at the junior levels as well, which is a little bit iffy about that Bulldogs system. But we've also got other dudes excelling in that Bulldogs system. Sosaya Alatini, Bronson Rubin, Sheldon Hayward, Aleko Lasimi Jones, all those dudes. Then you've got someone else like Zion Mai'u, who knows what he is up to with the Bulldogs. Bryenton left the Bulldogs. So the Bulldogs hyped up their signing, David Bryenton. Everyone loves David Bryenton. A few months later, he's left the Bulldogs. Now he's named for Ipswich in Queensland Cup. I think Ipswich have some connection to the Titans, which is interesting, but none of that stuff is confirmed. He's just named to play for Ipswich, and he doesn't seem to have played a game of Queensland Cup yet, because his profile with the Ipswich Jets logo has nothing there. This is, obviously he's from Aotearoa, a much type player, but it seemed like he left the Bulldogs because he wasn't getting the opportunities he wanted. Rightly or wrongly, right? But now he's named in reserve grade in Queensland. So regardless of whatever Bryenton thought he should be, like what grade he should be playing, a reserve grade team, Ipswich Jets, thinks David Bryenton should be playing reserve grade. So that's quite interesting. And it could be even more interesting if David Bryenton does have links to the Titans. I do think they're linked to the Titans because you've got Lachlan Ilias in the halves here. That could, it would be very interesting to see what David Bryenton does in Queensland Cup, because I can't imagine he left the Bulldogs on good terms. Either he was angry and pissed off, not getting what he wanted, or the Bulldogs were disappointed in what Bryenton was doing. Regardless of that stuff, he's now named to play Queensland Cup for Ipswich Jets. And if he makes the most of this opportunity, it would make the Bulldogs situation look a little bit goofy. But we'll have to wait and see what David Bryenton can do in Queensland Cup. Remember that him and Antonio Verhoeven spent time with the Tongan squad last year. And when you add in John Whinianga-Nofo and Tavita Nofahu from the Dolphins, you do have a few examples there of the next wave of young talent from Aotearoa in that Tongan system. Big up everyone. Have a good day. Blue skies, sun shining. Happy to be here. Chir chir.